Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Apex Online Racing channel, where today we have round 4 of Season 15 from the GT3 PC Tier 1 League. We are just kicking things off away, and as you can see, we're going to be racing at Hockenheim GP circuit, 4.57 kilometers in length, 16 turns in total. This should be an interesting and entertaining race, I would hope, for you guys. My name is Yorkie065, and I shall be providing you with the commentary and all the juicy action for today. We've got about 25-26 odd drivers in the lobby, which we're just currently loading into, getting ready for our 15-minute qualifying session, which has literally just begun. As we say that, it's the early hours of the morning here in Germany, and the cars are just filing their way out onto the circuit to try and sort themselves out into the best possible grid position they can get ready for the start of the race. So things are a little bit dark. It's 5 AM at the moment. The race will be kicking off at 6 AM, and we have forecasted some pretty tricky wet weather. So it'll be interesting to see how the guys handle that one, especially as later on in the race it is due to clear up a fair amount as well, and conditions should become drier. Currently watching at the moment on the circuit our previous race winner from round 3, Inky Chris, in that BMW Z4. Surely he is looking for another strong result today, and I've been tipped off that he is probably going to be one of the favourites around this circuit. Another favourite is going to be this man here, As Turbo, who's had a pretty rocky start to the season. He's down in 17th at the moment in the championship standings, but he's shown some really good pace. He's just had some really bad misfortune in the opening races, and has suffered in terms of race results because of that, hence why he is so far down the field. But yesterday in the practice race that these drivers would have participated in, he was showing some very strong pace and probably would have won the practice race if he had not pitted twice during the actual race itself. Another man who is also going to be looking strong here in round 3 is going to be this guy, Strongest Avenger. I believe just started a flying lap driving the Acura. He's been doing well so far this season. He's currently P3 in the Drivers' Championship. He's had a race win to his name at the opening round. Second round, in race 1, he came home in second position and then unfortunately retired from the second race of round 2. And then last time out in round 3, back at Rapuna GP circuit, he's getting the rear end out a little bit there under braking, coming into the turn 6 hairpin. He ended up finishing in P6, so he's been scoring a relatively decent haul of points. But yeah, he's currently 3rd in the championship. Inky Chris, who we saw earlier on, he's currently 2nd position in the Drivers' Championship, but it is this man here, Andrex, in the Audi R8 with the yellow headlights. He is currently leading the way at the moment with very consistent tally of results so far. His worst finishing position was in round 1 with a 5th position. He picked up 3 podiums since then, 2 at round 2 in the 2 races that we had there, and then also a 2nd position last time out at Rapuna. He's picked up a 3rd and a 1st, a race win in race 2 of round 2. So he's been on all 3 sets of the podium so far this season, but yeah, he is leading the way at the moment with 12 points to Inky Chris, and then Strongest Avenger is a further 28 points behind Inky Chris, with Speedy Gyo currently up in 4th position in the Drivers' Championship. So let's take a look at the times that the drivers are actually setting at the moment. Inky Chris, we can see, has set 1 lap. He's got a little bit of traffic just here in front of him as he's coming into turn 2 now. He's parking it off on the inside of the circuit to pretty much avoid impeding anyone else and just bailing out of his lap that is on there. But he's on a provisional pole position at the moment. 0.6 of a second up ahead of As Turbo, who has just jumped back to the pit lane to get a fresh set of tyres to be put on his car, and he will exit the pit lane and back out onto the circuit. Strongest Avenger currently in a provisional P3 at the moment with a 138.468, as we can see. Andrex has now actually gone and popped himself up into a provisional P2 and has immediately jumped to the pit lane as well. So who can we watch in terms of getting a decent lap for giving you a bit of a lap guide around the circuit? I think we should watch Inky Chris as he's passing the Audi R8. So we'll jump on board with him as he's coming into the final sector. He's got quite a bit of space in front of him. He's got plenty of fuel, so he should be lining himself up for another flying lap. He's just coming through the stadium section at the moment. Turns 13 and 14. Now into the penultimate turn, turn 15. Then to sort of curve the final corner of turn 16. So here we go then, getting a good drive off the final corner to begin a lap. We're going to hang to the left hand side of the circuit, ready for turn run, braking just as we get to the curbing on the right hand side, hammer the curb on the inside and then try and avoid touching the curb on the outside. It's really quite heavily serrated and really does unsettle the car. Braking about 70-80 odd metres before the corner, coming down into turn 2. We then flow through turn 3 and through turn 4 and out the other side onto the long back straight here. We're coming into the very long left-hander of turn 5 as we're shifting up through the gears, continuing to accelerate, looking for our braking point, which is going to be about 120 metres before the corner. Just as we get into the curbing and the green concrete on the outside there, braking all the way down into first gear for the hairpin, the slowest corner on the circuit. Picked that one up very, very nicely and got a good drive coming off as well. Turn 7, this right-handed kink is going to be completely flat out in 5th gear, just using the available road, and then braking hard as we get to this skate road on the right-hand side there. Down into first gear for the turn 8, the left-hander. Going through turn 9, now just through turn 10, and we head down along the drag strip down towards the entrance to the stadium section. It's very fast right-hander of turn 11 in 3rd gear. Then we come into the Sachs hairpin, braking just before we get to the 50-metre board, down into 2nd gear, just holding off for a late apex there. 13 and 14, pretty easy, completely flat out. Down into 2nd gear for the penultimate turn, nice and smooth through there. Try and open up the final corner, and then we get a good drive coming off the exit there, making use of the exit curb. And where is this going to put Inky Chris? He's going to improve his lap time by 0.09 of a second, but he's going to remain stationary in that 2nd place for the moment. And that is an example of the Hockenheim Ring GP circuit there, and also the pretty aggressive curbing on the outside of turn 1. If you do run out wide onto that curbing, either you need to keep your wheel on top of the first part and not dip it on over the other side, try and avoid straddle the curbing, or you go completely over to the other side and run well out wide onto the runoff area. Basically the curb out there is really quite heavily serrated. It's quite tall as well, and the drop down the other side can really unsettle the car if you catch it wrong. So be looking out for drivers potentially spinning on that one, especially in the wet conditions. But at the moment it's this man here, Strongest Avenger, who's currently got the pole time in the Acura, showing the pace of that car. It's really quite intriguing to see, as typically in the previous seasons we've seen drivers favour the Mercedes AMG or the Lamborghini Huracan, but Strongest Avenger proving that the Acura can work if you get the setup right on the car. They're showing some good strong pace. At the moment Andrex is out there now down in a provisional P4. There's both Inky Chris gone up into 2nd and Inky Chris is in 3rd, and Yogurt is now up into a provisional P2. As Turbo still lurking there in 5th position. He's just come through turn 8, he's going through turn 9 now. Flicks the car into turn 10, which is a slight breathe on the throttle. Then got JK16, ACR driver, driving the BMW M6 GT3 as well. I don't think we have seen him at all during this season. Indeed we haven't. This is the first race that he's actually started so far, so good to see that an M6 and BMW are being represented out there, running the BMW factory coloured livery, and he's showing some pretty strong pace. P6 at the moment. This car may fare pretty well in the wet conditions. Speedy Go at the moment is currently in a provisional P7. He's coming down towards turn 2. WMDR Martin, wagging the windscreen wiper as he has been throughout the season, is currently there in a provisional P8. He is the one and only pad driver that we have here in Tier 1 of AOR. We got Trep currently sat in the pit line in P9. Paphos going through the picture just there in the orange and blue and white Audi R8. He's currently in a provisional, well, he was P10, but Jobst in the Ferrari 488 GT3 has gone and popped himself up into a provisional P10 now. United Kingdom of Great Germany, otherwise known as Stefan Curry, our lead coordinator, is currently now in P10 as everyone is shuffling around their positions. Fubar has gone up into a provisional P8 now. Stefan Curry was previously down in 12th, 13th position, but just as we picked him up, he went across the start-finish line and set a lap time. So he's now in a provisional P11, ahead of Jobst, ahead of Paphos. Greg Wynn in the Cadillac is there, currently in P14 at the moment. Good to see some diversity, but we have seen him struggle a little bit with that Cadillac so far. Hopefully he's managed to get on top of it and tamed it a little bit here for this race. Tiago Pereira sliding the rear end there through the Sachs hairpin. He's currently on a visual P16, but he'll be looking to improve on his lap time. He's actually just coming through the final turn now, so we'll observe him as he goes through the final corner and see if he does improve. He's coming towards the start-finish line. I think he may have just been starting a flying lap. No time was popped up there. We've got Sean Neves, new driver as well. I haven't seen him, and indeed he has not started a race so far this season. Good to see him in, and he's driving the black and yellow Lamborghini Huracan GT3 that we can see there of Dime Racing, the 111 car. And Nuno Aparicio, Tiago Pereira's teammate, got a bit of a rearranged front end on his Porsche 911, but he's currently up in P16 at the moment, 4 tenths off his previous fastest. There is Tiago Pereira, who we saw earlier on. Atomic, Asturbo's teammate, is currently there in P20. At the moment, he'll be looking to try and improve on his position. We then got Delgado, also another driver who has not started any of the races so far this season. He is driving the Devil Biss number 2 Mercedes AMG GT3 car. He's just coming towards the end of his lap, so we'll observe him as he comes through the final couple of corners just to see whether he improves on his current lap time and see if he improves on his position. Will he do that, or is he just starting a flying lap? I think he's just starting a flying lap, so suspense been building for 2 of our drivers that we've been watching for it to then suddenly come to an anticlimax as they were actually on outlaps. Sub Conan currently down in P22 at the moment. We then got Deuce down in a provisional P23 in the Damon Tweaks Lamborghini. Otto Winkler in the Porsche 911 seems to be struggling here, as well as the other Porsche drivers. Down in 24th position at the moment. We've got Crab now down in 26th position. He was previously in 25th, but Fatworm has literally just gone across the start-finish line to claim that 25th position in his Audi R8. So we have got just over 2 minutes remaining. Just a couple of seconds. Drivers still out on circuit trying to sort themselves out into their starting positions that they want to occupy for the race. Some people will be looking to try and improve. Some people will be looking to try and hold on to the position that they currently occupy, such as this man here, Strongest Avenger, driving around the circuit at the moment. He's got plenty of space in front of him, so he shouldn't get impeded on this lap unless someone in front of him makes a major mistake. Yorga is just coming towards the start-finish line now with 1 minute 30 seconds remaining. Doesn't improve on that lap, but he's got 4.4 litres of fuel remaining. Really chucks it in there into turn 1 and actually uses the rear end of the car heavy into the wall. That's going to be some damage for him, and that is going to be the end of his session as well, because he is not going to be able to get back out onto the circuit in time. And in fact, the entire top 4 settling in the positions that they currently hold and have all retired to the pit lane. So at the moment, Strongest Avenger won't be improving on first position because he can't really. Yorgok won't be no better than second place. Alan has got himself up into third. Really good, strong and impressive lap time by him. He's currently occupying that third spot. Inky Chris is there in fourth position at the moment. So As Turbo, who is towards the end of the lap, just coming through the final sector at the moment. See if he improves on his lap time. That's if he is on a on an actual lap, hot lap at the moment, or whether he's just lining himself up for a flying lap. And he was on a lap, but it was a terrible lap, so he obviously backed out of that one somewhere along the line. So we'll make note that we'll have to catch him later on. Speedy Go having some troubles at the end, or exit of the hairpin there. So he's going to be no better than 6th position. JK there in 7th position at the moment. He is on a flying lap, 1/10 off his previous fastest. Andrex currently there in a provisional P8 at the moment. Coming up towards the end of the second sector. So we'll ride with him and see if he improves on his lap time. Here he comes to the timing beam, and he's only 8 thousandths off of his previous fastest lap time. He only needs to improve by 200ths of a second, and he'll pop himself up into 7th position ahead of JK, who is also out on circuit, also on a flying lap. So we'll remain with Andrex as one other driver is coming across the start-finish line at the moment. Here he comes through the final turn. Struggling a little bit, really pushing that, running out a little bit wide. Is that going to impact his lap time? Indeed it is, and he's weaving across the start-finish line. He's not going to be too happy about that. We've got WMDR Martin and also one of the Porsche drivers coming across the line as well for their final laps. Martin doesn't improve on 10th position. This As Turbo, nope, that is going to be JK16, who's getting really sideways out the exit of the final corner there, really pushing hard. Does he improve on his lap time? Doesn't look like he has. As Turbo is going to come across the line, and I don't think he's improved on his time either. He comes over the line in 5th position. So there's a couple of drivers still out on the circuit. Fubar is one of them, Andrex's teammate. He came home in 3rd position last time out in round 3. He's just coming through the final corner. He's got a car up in front. That is going to be Yogurk. Currently provisional P14. He doesn't improve on his lap time, and I don't think that Fubar improved on his time either. So here is your official confirmation of the qualifying results then. Strongest Avenger taking pole position with Yogurk in 2nd place. Alan came home in 3rd with Inky Chris in 4th. As Turbo picks up 5th position with Speedy Go in 6th place. ACR JK16 in 7th position with Andrex in 8th. 9th goes to Fubar. WMDR Martin will be starting from 10th position. Trip in 11th place with Paphos in P12. Stefan Curry in 13th position with Jobsk in 14th position. 15th goes to Mr. Zach with Gregwin in 16th place. Subconan in 17th. 18th is occupied by Nuno Aparicio. Tomic is in 19th position. Sean Neves is there in 20th. Delgado is in 21st with Otto Winkler in 22nd. Tiago Pereira down in 23rd position. Goose in 24th with Fatworm in 25th. And 26th, our final driver, will be occupied by Crab. So here we go, moving in to the race session, and you can see that the rain is falling. So the drivers will have to deal with the wet conditions. They've got a 2-minute grace period here at the beginning of the race when they can do their final checks of their pit strategy, which they will most likely be needing to pit for tyres halfway through the race due to a forecasted change in conditions. But also double check their car setup that they have applied to the car, and making sure that they've got the correct car setup applied as well, ready for these conditions. So track's going to start off a little bit dry-ish in the early phase of the race for the opening few laps, and it will get wetter, progressively wetter as the race goes on. But as I said, it's due to dry up halfway through the race, so there is that mixed conditions element there which the drivers will have to contend with. It'll be interesting to see who is going to be jumping onto the slick tyres when. Is anyone going to make the early jump? Is someone going to try and stick it out on the wet tyres for a little bit longer before they jump into the pit lane for that tyre change? We are just moments away from round 4 kicking off here at Apex Online Racing. So welcome everybody to the live stream. Welcome to the chat for those of you who have come in to join and view the racing action, and of course those who are watching back on the VOD as well. We all very much appreciate your views and your support for the channel and the leagues that we run here. This is just going to be a single race tonight, 36 laps, and the drivers are underway with their manual formation lap. Just about to begin that now, and I don't think anyone is going to be on slick tyres in these kind of conditions on Zolti. I think everyone is going to be on the wet. You must be an absolute madman to be on slicks in these conditions. As you can see, the spray is starting to be kicked up by the cars as they're circulating around, trying to maintain the heat and the temperature in the car and in the tyres. Yeah, they're doing the manual formation lap here at this beginning phase, just driving around the circuit at a reduced speed, and then once they get to the formation point, which is just after the Sachs hairpin, they'll be going into a 2x2 formation, where they'll also reduce their speed down to 80 kilometers an hour and 50 miles an hour. And then once they get out of the final corner, at any point between the end of the curbing on the outside of the final turn and the start-finish line itself, Strongest Avenger will be able to put his foot down to signify the beginning of the race. And Hanzolti, I think slicks are potentially manageable in some conditions, but I think from what I've been told by the drivers here, that it is wet tyres that they'll be starting the race on, rather than slick tyres. Or at least that was what I was told by Andrex. He's going to be starting in 8th position. Here we go, forming up into the 2x2 formation already. A little bit early, excuse me, a little bit early compared to where they were instructed to form up. It was actually meant to be at this point, but the earlier the better, allows all the other drivers to catch up and form up into the correct place as well. We shall focus our car on Alan in 3rd position, because usually 3rd place is the second best position to be starting these races in here at AOR, as you have a perfect view of the race leader in front, who obviously dictates when the race actually goes live. Starting in 2nd position isn't so great. Don't have a particularly great view of the race leader, but it is any point from now to the start finish line when the race leader can put his foot down. Jorgok needs to form up in the correct position, because currently at the moment he's ahead of Strongest Avenger, and actually we are underway racing. Jorgok is going to get absolutely mobbed and swabbed by a whole bunch of drivers, and Alan has gone and got himself up into a provisional P2. Inky Chris is going around the outside. He's straddling in the curve there on the exit. He tried to make the move around the outside of Jorgok. That didn't quite work. Inky Chris has now actually dropped down into 5th position because of that. The main person who's really benefited from this race start is Andrex. He's jumped from 8th position up into 4th already. Someone else who's really struggled here in the opening part of this race is going to be JK16. There he is in the BMW M6. He's dropped down into 10th position, having started from provisional P7, I believe, coming down into the hairpin. We've got a whole bunch of drivers. We've got Alan looking down the inside of the race leader. I think he's made contact. Jorgok has gone and spun round. There's a big contact there between him and NAS Turbo, who's trying to reform back onto the circuit, try and get out of everyone's way. But that was a very messy hairpin for a whole bunch of drivers. They try and filter their way through. I think most of them got through unscathed without too much damage. There was a couple of taps, but it's going to be such low speed that I think the damage is going to be near enough minimal but at the moment it is still Strongest Avenger leading away from Alan. We saw Strongest Avenger go a little bit deep, and Alan having a bit of a look to the inside. I think Yogurt was also a little bit late on the brakes and ended up spinning round, but he's now dropped down into 9th position because of that, and is actually being overtaken by Inky Chris coming down into the stadium section. He's got the Z4 driver on the inside. He's going to have the inside line though, coming up towards the Sachs hairpin. He's going to be looking to try and make that move, as Inky Chris is going to try and hold it around the outside before slotting in behind. So you'll go back up into P8 now, recovering after that spin. I believe it was As Turbo was one of the drivers who went into the side of Yogurt when he was sat stationary. Doesn't look like there's any significant damage to the front of his car, so he should be fine to continue completely unscathed. But what turned out to be a pretty poor start for JK16 has all of a sudden turned into being quite a good one. He's now up into 4th position after all that drama, and Andrex has also lost out a little bit with the contact at the start, as that was Speedy Go launching down the inside. Andrex had to take avoiding action there to avoid the Lamborghini from going deep. Speedy Go rejoining back onto the circuit in 9th position. So Andrex is now in 6th. He was up in P4 previously, but he's now very much under threat from Yogurt, who's looking down the inside, coming through the long right-hander of turn 5. He's going to be on the outside though, coming into the braking zone for the hairpin. It's going to be side by side with Andrex coming into the corner, and Andrex looking to the inside, but gets pinched there by Yogurt as they try and filter their way through for the second time under racing green flag conditions. Looked like everything was much neater and tidier this time round, trying to look through the Spurry at all the other cars, as Andrex is a little bit deep there going through turn 7, but managed to keep it within the confines of the circuit, and is very much coming under threat from Inky Chris behind him. See, Gregwin in the Cadillac is now up into P12. He started a little bit further down the field from where he was. We've got Mr. Zach in the Porsche. The Porsche should fare better in these wet conditions compared to the dry conditions that they had in qualifying. Seeing that they've really struggled so far here in this round. Mr. Zach should probably turn his lights on. He's a little bit more visible through the spray, but he'll be hunting down Paphos, who's just up there in front of him. At the head of the field, Strongest Avenger begins lap 4, leading Alan, who leads Bubar currently in 3rd position. There he is. As Turbo is currently holding on to 4th position in his green Mercedes. JK16 is there in 5th position, just behind Inky Chris, battling away with Andrex, having a look down the inside, coming into turn 2. This should be the move done by Inky Chris if he can get a decent exit, or is Andrex going to be able to come back at him? Andrex is going to have the slipstream coming onto the long back straight here. Will he try and make a move coming down into the key braking zone on turn 6? It's one of the main overtaking opportunities. You can see the sun glaring off the wet surface of the tarmac. Andrex braking a little bit later, going a little bit deep, almost taking out Inky Chris there. Does he manage to cover it back up? He does, but he does have a car going across his nose in front of him. That was WMDR Martin, and Tripp has benefited from that mistake from Andrex as well. Tripp now up into 7th position after starting, I believe, in a provisional P9. There he is. He's been struggling so far this season. Certainly looks to be a little bit more comfortable here in this race. But Inky Chris now up into that 6th place and has held on to it. He can now start hunting the newer generation BMW up in front of him for that 5th position. Old versus new with the Z4 versus the M6. Two very different approaches. Both of them V8, one turboed, one naturally aspirated. Both front engined, obviously both rear wheel drive, but there's a very sizable difference in silhouette between the two cars, and actually JK had a pretty poor run through the final corner there, so Inky Chris has gone and slotted himself up through, and Andrex is very much coming under threat from both WMDR Martin and also Tripp behind. So they filter their way through turns 1 and 2 side by side between the two Lamborghinis. Andrex managed to get the position, I believe, hold on to it. WMDR Martin is now up into P8. Driving on the pad in these conditions. Andrex has gone and had a slight spin there, half spin coming off the exit of turn 2, coming through turn 3. He's now going to drop some positions, and he's dropping down very much under threat from Gwegwin as we're coming down the long back straight, and Mr. Zach will be closing up on the back of this 4-car train. Look at this possible 3 wide going into the hairpin. That's surely not going to work there, as Gwegwin's looking down the inside of Andrax, who's looking down the inside of Speedy Go. Does he be able to get the move done and dusted on the exit? No, he just settles in behind for the moment. Very close racing from these guys so far at this early stage in the race. A number of drivers clearly struggling in these wetter conditions. Wonder how many of them have set themselves up for the drier conditions later on. Jumping up to the battle for second position, Fubar has closed up onto the back of Alan. Is right there on the back of the Mercedes. And surely we're looking to try and find a way past fairly soon. As Inky Chris, I can see, has made the position and jumped himself ahead of JK16. We did see that as he struggled off the exit of the final turn. Just as we're picking up Andrax. Yeah, Fubar following the Mercedes in front of him. There is the view from the roof camera. Just peeling out of the spray, just trying to pinpoint his braking spot as Alan goes deep there into turn 2. This could be Fubar's chance to get a good run coming off the exit of the corner here. There's a big puddle that runs across the width of the circuit there, right in the traction zone as they come off the exit of turn 4. Going to be side by side between Fubar and Alan as they come down the long back straight. Alan holding a very defensive line way over to the right hand side of the circuit. I think he's just letting Fubar through to take the place and not really fight him, so they don't lose too much time battling each other. And now 2.5 seconds there or thereabouts off the back of Strongest Avenger. They've got As Turbo. They'll be watching that battle quite keenly and will be looking to try and close that gap up to the drivers, as once again Alan goes deep in another corner. That was turn 8. Mercedes turn right in front of the Mercedes Stadium. So he's quite clearly struggling on the brakes at this stage of the race, and that's cost him a fair amount of time and is going to allow As Turbo to close up to within a second as well. You see some puddles already starting to form around the circuit. Let's jump on board with Alan, as once again he's losing the rear end of the car a little bit under braking. Going into that corner of the Sachs hairpin. Coming through the penultimate turns. There might be a slight river running across the width of the circuit just as we're going into the final corner, but nothing too major that I can see just yet. Approaching the final corner now though. Quite a big puddle just as you're coming in on the apex curve on the inside of turn 1 there. Take a look at approaching the braking zone for turn 2. Oh, Fubar's got another spin. Alan takes avoiding action going around the outside, and Alan recovers that second place. Oh, not before there was a little bit of contact though between the two. Alan must have thought that he was clear of the Audi R8 as he was recovering back onto the circuit, and there was a little bit of brush there between the two of them. That's brought As Turbo right into play now though, as he is right there on the back on the final podium spots, having a bit of a look coming down towards the hairpin of turn 6. Fubar being forced to go defensive as once again Alan has gone deep. That's going to allow the two drivers to come very close, and then do indeed make contact on the exit there as they were trying to get out off the acceleration zone. Got a lap driver peeling off to the right hand side there to allow these guys to come on through. Not impeded, but Fubar is now up into P2 with Alan in P3, and As Turbo is lurking right there waiting to pick up any mistakes that the guys make in front of him. Surely Inky Chris is going to be closing up on this battle as well, and on the previous lap he took a good 0.6 of a second out of As Turbo, so he certainly seems like he's got some good pace in that Z4, which does have very good aero efficiency and is a pretty handy car in these wet conditions. The M6 behind is also pretty good in the wet conditions due to the car's weight. As Turbo just following the two drivers in front of him through the final couple of corners. As the race leader just going through the foreground of the shot there, as JK16 was out wide once again on the exit of the final corner. Drivers navigating their way around the circuit. They're using some of the curbs in some places, but avoiding some of the others. Will the drivers actually be able to keep it under wraps this time coming through turn 2? It looks like it was. Everything seemed pretty calm there. We've got a battle between JK16 and WMDR Martin, though, coming out the exit of turns 2, 3 and 4. The Lamborghini alongside the BMW M6 as we're coming down the long back straight. Who has got the legs over the other? Who is going to be more confident under braking coming into the hairpin? At the moment, it looks like Martin is just about nosing ahead of JK, but JK is there lurking on the inside. Martin can't let the door open and let him make the mistake that he's just gone and done. That's going to allow JK through. Although Martin looked like he got a better drive coming off the exit of the corner and could be threatening coming into the very fast left-handed kink of turn 7. JK just about giving enough room on the inside, but Martin for the moment is going to hold station behind, but has a look coming down into turn 8. A little bit of contact between the two of them, but nothing really major there. Both of them continuing on without spinning, although that is a back marker very much spinning across the circuit there. I believe that is backworm, and indeed it probably is, seeing him down in 24th position. We've had 2 drivers retire from the race so far. Take a look to see who those may be, but at the moment JK coming out on top in the battle between himself and WMDR Martin. Turbo's dropped off the back of Alan in front of him, so he's obviously had a slight mistake somewhere along the line on this lap and is now very much under threat from Inky Chris behind. They're coming across the start finish line to begin lap 9. Andrex is trying to work his way back up through the field after his pretty messy start. Is in 9th position at the moment, about a second and a half off the back of Trip. Inky Chris is having a little bit of a look here at Turbo coming into turn 2, but wasn't close enough to stick his nose up in on the inside. So now it's the question of who got the best traction and the best drive coming off the exit of turns 2, 3 and 4. Inky Chris there lurking in the slipstream of Turbo. Sat very much right in the spray, so they're heading down towards the hairpin. It's not going to be close enough to make the move. Where he closes up under braking. Turbo going a little bit defensive as the car was starting to break away from him slightly. So he was coming in towards the apex. Managed to cover it back up, and for the moment Inky Chris has held off, kept at bay behind. There's WMDR Martin and JK16 once again trade positions. JK right there up underneath the rear wing of the Lamborghini as they're coming into the Mercedes turn 8. JK having a look around the outside, goes for the switchback though. Going through turn 8, that's going to have him on the outside of turn 9. WMDR Martin's going to be forced to take the tighter line through turn 10. This could allow JK to switch back underneath again, but not quite going to work. He isn't going to be there to try and make the move coming into turn 11. It's a pretty difficult passing opportunity, but if you're right there up alongside, it is possible. Martin is now being forced though to go defensive coming into the Sachs hairpin. As JK is pressuring him quite hard, obviously wanting to try and fight for that 7th position at the moment, as WMDR Martin was all up over the curb there going through turns 13 and 14. He's very much under threat coming through the final turn, just about pinches JK at the apex. Holds on to the position for now, but this battling hard between these two drivers is going to be allowing Andrex and Trip to close up onto the back of them, and it's going to drop Martin and JK off the back of Inky Chris up ahead. Jump up to that battle between himself and Turbo. They come out of turn 4 onto the long back straight, drop down low onto the front bumper of the Z4. There's his view in front, very much sat in the spray. Turbo suddenly turning on the lights there. Come into the braking zone. Both of them struggling a little bit under braking, but Inky Chris has got a pretty good run through the corners, very much there, although I think came a little bit close and the car started to break away from him. He had to lift out the throttle. Quite a big slowdown there from Turbo coming through the kink of turn 7. Should be near enough flat out, but perhaps in these conditions, Mercedes really struggling grip, and actually has to lift out a lot more than we would usually expect drivers to be doing, but potentially Turbo running a dry weather setup is obviously therefore taking it a little bit more cautious here in these conditions at the moment. You can see the car really sliding around and trying to break away from him in the slower corners. especially upon turning. Let's jump to this battle between Paphos, Subconan and Thiago Pereira. This is battle for 15th position. A three-way fight at the moment, and just up in front of them is Delgado, who's making his debut here in Season 15. He's currently occupying 14th position at the moment. Bregwin just up ahead in P13, and Jogurk is currently in P12. Or is that Jobsk? I think that might actually be Jobsk that's currently in P12. Yes, indeed it is Jobsk. Sorry, mistaken identity there. I think Jogurk actually might be one of the drivers that we have lost here in this session. Indeed, I think it is. But we've still got Nuno Aparicio. I think Otto Winkler could be the other driver that we have seen missing from the leaderboard. As just behind, we're seeing Thiago Pereira looking down the inside of Subconan coming into turn 2, but wasn't quite close enough to make that move work, so he's going to settle in behind for the moment. Continuing to press on hard and threaten, see if he can get potential position. There is Otto Winkler actually in P18, so he is still there. Got Deuce just there in 90th position in the Demon Tweaks Lamborghini, just behind as well. So a bit of a battle between these two, and not too far off the back of them is Sean Neves and Nuno Aparicio. Porsche drivers seem to be really struggling around this circuit. They're coming into the braking zone there. No changes that we can see in terms of those positions. So let's jump back further up to the battles further up the field. Tripp and Andrex have gone and swapped positions once again. Andrex now back down in P9 and Tripp up into P8. There's been a change of position there. That's happened off camera. You see that JK16 is still battling with WMDR Martin. There's about 6 to 7 tenths of a second between the two of them now. But BMW is still lurking fairly close to the back of the Lamborghini, as Zinky Chris is very much there, still trying to find a way past As Turbo. Puddle's getting bigger going through turn 4 there, across the width of the circuit. It's actually right on board with Zinky Chris, and see where all these puddles are pouring. As you can see, this back straight is pretty saturated. A lot of small micro puddles. Various other places appears to be rivers and larger puddles running across the width of the circuit. It's quite a big puddle there on the apex of the hairpin. That could come into play when the track dries up later on, because obviously the puddles are going to take longer to dissipate in the drier, sunnier conditions. Coming here into Mercedes corner. Track looks wet, but there's no massive gripping live puddles that I can see. Likewise through turns 9 and 10. Coming into turn 11 now. Things are looking pretty good. There's quite a big puddle on the exit on the right hand side. Big puddle there just as we're going into the braking zone for the Sachs hairpin. Bit of a puddle there at an early apex as well. So these are all things that drivers are going to have to be careful of and watch out for, because if they catch these big puddles, especially in slick tyres, they will end up aquaplaning and momentarily losing control of the car. There's a river running across the width of the circuit there just as we're coming into the turning point for the final corner, and Inky Chris has got a pretty good run here at As Turbo. Don't think the start finish straight is going to be quite long enough for him to make the move down the inside. Quite a big puddle on the entry to the apex of the first turn that we've identified earlier on in the race. What about coming into turn 2 though? Are there any puddles in and around here? Not really. There's just this big puddle that runs across the width of the circuit there, which As Turbo struggled with a little bit, the car breaking away from him. So these are all things that the drivers are going to have to be considering when they make the switch to the dry tyres, the slick tyres, the early phase of the race, or shall I say the halfway point of the race, when the conditions do change and things start to dry out a bit more. At the moment, as we can see, Alan continuing on just behind Fubar, battle for second position, 5 seconds up the road, his strongest Avenger, just sitting fairly happy and consistent. up there in the race lead. Andrex and Tripp still battling away for that 8th position at the moment, and Deuce and Notta Winkler still battling away for 16th place. So let's see what penalties we have at the moment. We've got Jobsk with a 30-second penalty, so that most likely would have been for overtaking someone whilst off the circuit, and I imagine that would have been from lap 1 here at the hairpin. So he can take that to the stewards and request that 30-second penalty to be removed, seeing as he had no choice other than to take avoiding action to potentially avoid contact with someone, and if you happen to gain a position from that, then so be it, providing that is a legitimate avoiding action that he was taking and the position was gained. The stewards will remove that penalty, and Tripp trying to avoid the large puddle on the inside of turn 1 that sent him way off wide and out over the exit curb on the corner. That gifted the position to Andrex, so he's gained a freebie of P8 there from that mistake. See a couple of back markers just behind them. All Winky Chris and Nas Turbo battling away for 4th position, side by side on the exit of the hairpin, but Nas Turbo's got the better drive coming off the corner. Winky Chris settling in behind for the moment, very much lurking there, waiting and ready to pounce whenever the Mercedes driver in front of him makes the mistake. Jumping back on board with the roof camera. You can see the conditions starting to clear a little bit. There's a few less clouds flowing around in the sky up above. It still seems like the rain is falling a bit though, and as you can see, the track is still very much wet. Starting to approach the halfway stage of the race. Chris closing right up there onto the back of As Turbo as he was struggling coming through turns 13 and 14 and into the braking zone from 15. Z4 certainly seems like he's got the pace over the Mercedes, and As Turbo actually lifting out and moving over to the side of the circuit there to let Inky Chris go through. Thinking of the long game. Inky Chris just giving a flash of the lights to say thank you very much. Bit of a tactical move there by As Turbo to allow the Z4 driver through. They would just use his pace rather than holding him up to try and close up onto the drivers up in front. We've got some lap traffic. I believe that'll be Aparicio. As they're just in front of these guys. WMDR Martin as well. 146.980. He certainly seems like a man on the move, and has been pulling away from JK16. We were seeing them battling away earlier on, and has taken time out of the drivers up in front of him. Pretty impressive performance here on the pad in these conditions. Hopefully it will continue when it comes to the drier conditions in a fairly short moment's time. Tripp and Mr. Zach are closing up onto one another. Andrex still leading the way of this very soon to be 3-car train. Zach is just over a second off the back of Tripp, and Tripp is a little bit closer to Andrex, like in about 0.6 of a second thereabouts. There or thereabouts, shall I say. 0.3 of a second off his previous fastest, but the lap times will start tumbling as the track starts gripping up. Where is Strongest Avenger? He has just come through turn 1. His previous lap was a 46.9. Ubar's just gone through 48. Likewise for Alan as well. So they're not quite feeling comfortable and heavily on the pace as of yet. That's Turbo there with a 48.9 as well. I think Chris is down into the 47s. WMD Martin was on a 47 as well. See if any other drivers can get themselves down into the 46s. The rain is still falling at the moment, but not quite at the velocity and ferociousness that it was falling earlier on in the race. So we could start to see the track starting to dry up, as I thought for a moment there that Fubar was going for a slight half spin in the in the hairpin, but I think it was just the case that his revs dropped that much when going through the corner. Coming through turns 9 and 10. Alan is still sat there in a prime position at the moment, waiting for Fubar to make a potential mistake. You can see 2 tenths up on his previous fastest, so times are now starting to come to the drivers. The conditions are slowly starting to change. Weather is clearing up. The rain will cease to fall fairly soon, but the track will remain fairly wet for a while. We'll probably start to see a dry line start to form before the entire width of the circuit really starts to dry up, and then it's going to be a question as to how long the puddles will take before they start to properly clear. There we go, Fubar and also Alan both into the 4-6s, taking some time out of Strongest Avenger on the previous lap, who I think may have got a slowdown warning coming through turns 1 and 2. I did see the deltas go a little bit funny and a little bit haywire for all the drivers off the race leader. And considering he did a 47.3 on the previous lap, probably indicate that made a mistake somewhere along the line, potentially just running wide or running offline. Here we go, our first driver into the pit lane, Speedy Go. So he is making the jump early. It seems like there's another pit crew as well waiting for another driver to come on in. So Speedy Go stopping in his pit box, most likely going for the change of tyres as well. Ignore the animations. That's not actually representative of the work being done on his car. For us, you'll see a different set of animation timings than what we see. So there he goes at the earliest opportunity. So jumping onto the slicks early is Speedy Go. He'll be the man to watch, kind of the reference point for everyone else, but depending on what tyres he's gone onto, he could very much struggle in these early conditions, especially with the larger puddles and the wetter spots around the circuit. See, he was struggling for grip there going through turn 2, and likewise coming out through turn 4, really struggling as he ran out wide there. It did look like he was on another set of wet tyres, but I don't think the material is actually representative of the actual tyres that they've actually got on. Very much coming under threat from Sean Neves behind though. Again, trying to slow the car down, taking it fairly cautious, taking a whack at the rear of the car as well as Sean Neves really struggled under braking. So now Speedy Go is very much under threat from a couple of cars behind. One of them being Nuno Aparicio, who's very much under threat from the 111 Lamborghini driver. We've also got Deuce just there as well, coming very close to contact between the Lamborghini and Nuno Aparicio. They're very much to avoid making contact somehow or another, coming out round the outside through turn 10. Nuno Aparicio trying to defend, is looking to the inside coming into the stadium section, but Sean Neves gets it done around the outside there. Nice tidy driving from them. Deuce having a little bit of a look at the Porsche driver as well, trying to capitalise on the battle going on ahead of him, but wasn't able to get up alongside. I very much agree with you as well, chat, that I think it's going to be too early for the drivers jumping onto the slick tyres, but Speedy Go still circulating around at the moment. It seems like he's got some grip there. He's able to maintain the heat in the tyres. It will work for him. Nuno Aparicio is now into the pit lane as well. He's the second driver that we've seen making the blink. And oh, look at this. The top three all within a second and a half of each other. As Strongest Avenger is going to have made a mistake somewhere on this lap. Fubar is now there in second position. There is another mistake from Strongest Avenger running out wide. That's going to give the lead to Fubar as he comes through the final turn. The Strongest Avenger clearly struggling with something, potentially even just the tyre heat with the wet tyres, possibly just struggling to cool the tyres down, because once they do start to heat up, they really do struggle for grip. So it could be that he's really having to fight and contend with. You can see how much time he's lost on the previous lap, 9 seconds, and of course the position as well. Fubar's continuing to find the pace though. Taking a wider line. It's looking like the track is still pretty wet. The rain has pretty much stopped falling from the sky now, so the track will be starting to dry, and we'll start to see in a number of places some slightly drier patches as well. But Strongest Avenger really seeming to be struggling here out of the top three. Fubar really seems like he's man on top of the conditions. He's pushing on hard. There still seems like plenty of spray. It seems like there's a drier patch there on that short straight between turns 7 and 8, and likewise coming through here as well. See some slightly lighter grey patches where water is being lifted. Coming into the stadium section though, still pretty wet. There's still that puddle on the right hand side of the circuit. There's still this big puddle that runs and spans across the width of the track. Doesn't seem like there's any major puddles on the inside of Sachs Hairpin, which was one of the key points that a number of drivers are talking about. And here we go, Fubar diving into the pit lane. Does any of the other drivers behind him follow? Strongest Avenger continuing on round for the moment. So does Inky Chris and also Alan. So they'll now occupy the top three, as Fubar is the first man of the front runners to make the blink coming into the pit lane. As he comes in, WMDR Martin continues on round, moving over to the right hand side of the circuit to try and find the water on the track to try and cool down the tyres, because that is a legitimate strategy that you can do here in Project Cars 2. The damper, wetter parts of the circuit will cool the tyres down. So Andrex is now up into a 5th position, having got himself ahead of JK. He seems to be pretty strong in these kind of conditions, as they are making the change now. Obviously Fubar, his teammate, is in the pit lane, so he's gained a position there, so he's in the net 6th position at the moment. Trip is there lurking at the back of JK16 as they're coming onto the long back straight. Still plenty of spray being kicked up at this part of the circuit, and Trip closing up. JK having to go defensive, though moves back over onto the racing line, as Trip wasn't quite close enough there to try and go for the move, although I think Trip was closing up at quite a fair rate onto the back of the M6. Seems to be very much there, right up on the rear bumper of the M6 coming into turn 7. No real passing opportunity there. Unfortunately hasn't quite timed it right to go for the move coming into turn 8 here either, where he just sails in behind for the moment. You see the M6 really struggling for traction coming out the exit of turn 10. You can see where the drier and wetter parts of the circuit actually are, with spray being kicked up off the rear tyres. And here we go, 2 more of the front runners. We have Strongest Avenger into the pit lane, as well as Inky Chris. So where is Fubar? He's currently in P9 at the moment, just coming in towards the Sachs Hairpin. No doubt going to be on a set of slick tyres. Where is he going to come out in relation to the other guys, as Andrex is now also into the pit lane, hitting at the big end of lap 20, beginning of lap 21. JK16 also into the pits. So Fubar is coming on through. Strongest Avenger is still sat stationary, so is Inky Chris. Inky Chris is now rolling and moving. And, well, that's... that was Strongest Avenger there, taking out the pit exit board. That indicates the line for disengaging the pit speed limiter. He's really fighting the car under braking coming into turn 2 there, but manages to get it back up. But Fubar continuing out. He's had a lap's experience, and I think I've just seen Strongest Avenger running out wide on the exit of turn 4 off onto the grass. And indeed again he is. Oh no, he's going to make contact with the wall, spinning across the circuit. Will Inky Chris be able to avoid him? Strongest Avenger does a full 360, manages to gather the car back up. Not without severe damage at the front of his car though. You can see him starting to crab a little bit as he comes in towards the braking zone for turn 6. That is going to be his race pretty much done and dusted. He's going to need to crawl it back to the pit lane, get it back in, get that car repaired and fix that damage, and get back out onto the circuit. You can see the car is all over the place, heavy suspension damage at the front of the Acura. And that's going to be him tumbling way down through the field after having a very dominating performance in the first half of the race, leading the majority of it until it came to the changeable conditions that really come into play here. Alan is now into the pit lane, stopping in his pit box to get a set of tyres changed. We shall again ignore the animations. WMDR Martin continues to circulate round, as also Trip and Mr. Zach are now into the pit lane. You can see Martin hunting for the wetter patches on the circuit to try and cool the tyres off before taking back to the racing line in order to basically find his way, the fastest way around the circuit. He's still out there. Bubar struggling a little bit under braking there. He's currently in a net first position, 15 seconds off the back of WMDR Martin, no doubt on a set of slick tyres. Sub Conan behind him in 21st position at the moment. Will be a lap down though. Strongest Avenger is indeed now into the pit lane to get that damage repaired. He's peeling up towards his pit crew. There we go, stopping inside. He will get that damage repaired and back out onto the circuit, but all the while tumbling down through the field. So I think Chris is back out onto the track in 4th position. We got Jobs up there in a provisional P3 at the moment, but he is yet to make his pit stop. He also has that time penalty as well. So he'll be tumbling back down through the field when he jumps back into the pit. So you can see that Ubar is catching WMDR Martin ham over fist. There's a good 15 seconds or so between the two of them at the beginning of this lap, and the gap is now down to 12 seconds already. So surely WMDR Martin will be diving off into the pit lane, as there's still some spray being kicked up by the cars at the moment. It's not completely dry, but you can keep tyres up to temperature. The slicks will continue to work here in these conditions, as there's a drier line here on the left hand side coming on the approach towards the first turn. A little bit wetter going through and out the exit of that, but at the moment Martin's still circulating round. Obviously the further he goes into the race, the fresher his tyres will be at the end, and that's possibly what he's trying to set himself up for, is making use of the available grip and possibly just trying to clear a little bit more of the water first before jumping onto the tyres, onto a set of slicks, and wanting to help clear the larger puddles around the circuit, because you can see them in various spots spanning across the width of the circuit, and obviously if you catch those wrong on a set of slick tyres, that will be you aquaplaning potentially off the circuit. This part of the track certainly looks a lot drier. It's nowhere near as reflective as the back straight. Coming to turn 8 here. Again, looking drier. So I think this is where the slick tyres are really making up the time over the wets. It's where they can continue to push and not worry about the tyres overheating. Porsche being quite aggressive and slightly sideways there going into the entrance to the stadium section. Fubar going a little bit deep there under braking. But manages to gather it back up and is still continuing to catch WMDR Martin, who is still out on circuit. He's still circulating around and is yet to come into the pit lane. Make that jump to tyres. Otto Winkler is in for a change of tyres, as well as Atomic. Let's see what's going on here. JK16 very much under threat from Sean Neves in the Lamborghini behind him. Battle for 12th position, and then just under 2 seconds up the road is Delgado, currently up in P11. He's been fairly quietly working his way through up the field, getting lucky with other people's misfortunes. So he's doing a good job there. And then this is the battle for 6th and 7th and 8th positions between Mr. Zach, Speedy Go and Trip, as Atomic is just coming and rejoining back onto the circuit after coming out the pit lane. He moves quite comfortably out the way of these guys to allow him on through without impeding him, and will no doubt be tiptoeing his way through turns 3 and 4, though he also ends up finding himself running out a little bit wide there on the exit of turn 4, like a number of other drivers. And As Turbo has been one of the drivers who has left the session. In fact, yeah, I don't see him. I haven't actually picked him up looking through the field at various different points. The cell phone ringing since lap 1. That's very unfortunate. Obviously, As Turbo a very popular man and someone wanted to get hold of him. But that's a shame to see him drop from the standings, as he was looking in a pretty good position for that race. Now WMDR Martin makes the jump into the pit lane, as well as Deuce up ahead. Here he comes into his pit box. Where is he going to come out in relation to everyone else? So Fubar has obviously been set free and now occupies the race lead. He's got 8.5 seconds to Inky Chris. For him making the jump onto the slick tyres a little bit earlier than everyone else has benefited quite nicely, but obviously that's going to be offset by his tyres being a lap or two older than the drivers behind him. Inky Chris at the moment, they're in second position. Alan, currently they're in third. The man with the fastest lap on the previous lap out of those who have set lap time to begin 25. Lap 25, shall I say. We saw that he is also up on his previous fastest at the beginning of this lap as well in the first sector. Andrex is now in 4th position, coming into the hairpin, and WMDR Martin has come back out into 5th place. A good healthy spot for him there in some quite nice clear air. It's 3 seconds up the road from Mr. Zach, so he doesn't really have that pressure coming from behind. He's 5 seconds off the back of Andrex, so he can focus on the lap times, get his head down and try and close the gap to the drivers in front of him. And with his tyres being a lot younger than everyone else's, we could see him closing up, benefiting from some grip advantage over the other guys at the end of the race. We'll have to keep an eye on that one as Mr. Zach goes and runs out very wide. No, is this Mr. Zach disconnecting from the race? I believe it is, as a speedy goat. This could be a whole bunch of drivers, in fact. Oh, it's me. Okay. It's me disconnecting from the race. That is obviously far from ideal. I apologise for that. Not entirely sure what happened there. But I'll have to try and get back into the session as quickly as I possibly can, so bear with me a moment whilst figure out what is going on here, whether it's just Project Cars or whether it's my internet. Seems like the stream is fine and still going on. It's still showing live and connected still. It's just the fact that the game has completely lost connection. There are no lobbies at all whenever I go onto browse online. Bear with me a moment. What I'm going to do is I'll restart the game and see if that makes any difference. I imagine if the entire lobby has gone down, we'll start to see some drivers popping up here in the chat. There is JK16, one of the drivers. I assume that the lobby has gone. Firing the game back up now. Hopefully too many drivers haven't lost connection. Don't know whether it's the whole lobby or just the 1 or 2 people that ended up disconnecting with me. Hopefully we'll find out fairly soon. Unfortunately, my Discord is also playing havoc this evening as well, so I can't go back into the Discord channel to actually talk to everyone there. Okay, interesting. I've got all my lobbies back. However, there's only 6 people, or it's showing that there's 6 people still in it. So, yeah, indeed, only 6 people in the lobby. So I'm going to assume that the entire lobby has gone and crashed with that, which is very unfortunate, because that will have to mean that this is going to be the end of the broadcast here for round 4. What I will do, though, just quickly, is double check the rules to see what is going to happen there with regards to the race. As we were over the halfway stage, there are a set of rules for what happens with mass lobby disconnects in these kind of situations. And AOR classes a mass disconnection with 4 or more people disconnecting within 30 seconds or so of each other. But just bear with me a quick moment whilst I do a little bit of investigation here as to what is going to be happening. So, rules and regulations. Let's see. Go on the league information thread. Scroll down. Disconnection guidelines. So, more than 50% of the race was completed at the time of a mass disconnection, which we have had. The race order from the time of the first person disconnecting, which will probably be basically when the lobby died, that will be basically the final result, and half points will be awarded to all the drivers present and on track at the time of the disconnection. So that, I think, is unfortunately going to be the conclusion of round 4. Certainly not the way that we would have liked for all of it to have gone, but considering there was only just a very small handful of drivers still circulating around the track, it's probably not going to make the greatest of shows for you guys. So yeah, apologies for that. That's a real shame that that turned out and played out the way that it did, especially as we were lining up a number of interesting scenarios with WMDR Martin on a set of fresher tyres. The track was really just starting to properly dry out as well, so the question of who had what kind of pace in the drier conditions was still very much looming and unanswered. But yeah, that's going to be it for round 4 here. Apologies for that. Thank you very much for everybody tuning in. If you are new here, please consider subscribing to the Apex Online Racing YouTube channel. If you hit the bell notification as well, you'll be notified for whenever we go live. And we do a number of live streams throughout the week across various different racing sims and games. F1 2019, iRacing, Project Cars 2, Assetto Corsa Competizione, various other games as well. So yeah, there's plenty on offer for you to sink your viewing eyes into and soak up that good content. Also down in the links below is links to my social media and also YouTube channel. Feel free to check me out as well if you so wish. I do educational and also entertaining content over there on my own channel across various different sims as well. But yeah, that's a real shame. But nonetheless, hopefully we'll see you guys back next week, 22nd of April, same time again, 8 PM British Summer Time. We'll have round 5 at Donington GP Circuit. Again, there's going to be another fairly early morning race, not quite as early in the morning as today's race was, but it'll be the usual format once again of a 15-minute qualifying session with a 60-minute race. So hopefully we'll see you back then, but until the next one, thank you very much for watching, guys. Have fun, look after yourselves, stay safe, and take care.